everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Bob here. Thanks so much for stopping by today. Today we're going to be taking a look at a watch that I'm super excited to finally have in the collection. The watch is the new version of the MM300, and this thing is just so sweet. For a long time, I'd been looking at adding a watch from the MM300 family. I'd looked at the 001. I actually almost picked up the 017 not that long ago, but with the upgrades that this watch comes with, I'm glad that I made this choice. I think this is the one for me. I've only had the watch for a couple of weeks now, but I've really connected with it, and I think it's taken the pedestal for my favorite watch in the collection. So let's get into the watch. All right, now I'm not sure the exact reasoning, but these come out in two model numbers. There's the SBDX023 and this one, the SLA021. I've read the SBDX023 is the JDM version, but the hang tag here says with this model, the SLA021 with the J1, which usually means a JDM model, so not sure there. So I know there's some debate on some of the changes with this from the 001 and 007, or sorry, the 017, like the text on the dial, the crown, and of course the price increase, all of that. And we'll probably talk a little on that, but a friend of mine has the 001 he's willing to lend into the channel, so at some point we'll do a comparison video. So I'm going to start with the case design, and it's definitely one of the highlights of the watch, and I think the best way to get a good look at it is to get it off the bracelet here for a minute. So there's quite a bit happening with this case in terms of design and finish work. The case is a monocoque design, and what that means, if you're not familiar, is it is a one-piece design. If you look at the case back here, you'll see that we don't have the typical screw-down case back. To access the movement, you have to actually go through the top side through the crystal, and what that does is it gives the watch less spots for water to potentially penetrate through. Very cool, although I'm sure it makes servicing a little bit trickier. The overall look is just so Seiko in its design. The curves, the lines, just look at how sharp the lines are between the polished and brushed finishes. The technique to get the polished finish is called Zaratsu polishing, and the result is a mirror finish. If you look at the case finish on some other watches at a macro level, you often see ripples and imperfections, but the finish here is on a whole other level. It's seriously impressive in person. I tried to get a little more information on the Zaratsu technique and where it originated, and the info is pretty mixed out there, but I found a short piece of an article on the Grand Seiko site that sheds a little light on it. Back in the 50s, they used a German polishing machine with the letters GEBR and Salas engraved on it. GEBR is an abbreviation for brothers, and Salas a last name, and apparently Salas is pronounced similar to Zaratsu in German, and that's where they got the name. They don't go into detail on the exact process, but I'll leave a link to that article below. Overall, though, I just love the case shape and design. That side profile is just beautiful. We do also have drilled lugs here, so let's get this back on the bracelet. The bracelet is really nice. It's almost completely brushed, other than the sides of the links and the two thinner strips there where we have some polishing. One thing I forgot to mention, the bracelet as well as the case, they're using the DiaShield coating, which protects against scratches and corrosion. The bracelet does have solid end links. The clasp has a combination of pressed and milled steel. I love how the ratcheting dive extension works. Just a little push here and it releases, and you can ratchet it back in. One negative, and it's probably nitpicking a bit, but a lot of times when I put the watch on or take it off, I tend to hit the clasp and it releases on me. You can just slide it back in. Once it's on wrist, it's not an issue at all. So I kind of got caught up in all of that gorgeous shiny steel, and we haven't even talked about the dial yet, but let's kind of go over what's happening here. So first of all, it's a very legible watch with the big, bold, applied hour markers. The way the handset is finished, they're always easy to read no matter how the light seems to hit them. I love how they matched the gold second hand to the depth rating text on the dial. When it comes to the print work, up top we have Seiko printed, and when I first started looking at these, I thought a watch like this maybe deserved an applied logo, but now that I have it, I think that that might have been a little bit too much for the watch. I like that they've kept it simple there. Down at the 6, we have the Prospex logo replacing the Marine Master text, which I know some aren't a huge fan of. Below that is Automatic Professional, and again, that 300-meter depth in gold. Over at the 3 is the silverish date wheel. The bezel is a 120 click bezel. We have that upgraded ceramic insert. Nice tight action. The bezel itself is quite thick, but because of that, it's really easy to grip and use. If we can get it back to the 12, everything lines up perfectly. The bezel has loom at the 12, but they've also loomed the markings up to the 20-minute mark. The loom is always great with Seiko divers, and this one won't disappoint the loom junkies out there. Just a killer loom on this. Easy to orient the watch in the dark. It does have that gradual fade like any loom, but stays visible for hours. The case size on this comes in at a width of a little over 44 millimeters. The lug to lug is 50 millimeters. We have a lug opening of 20 millimeters, and the thickness I'm getting right around 15.3 millimeters. So it's got some heft to it, but if you actually compare it to the SKX side by side, visually they're very similar. Straight on, at least, that is. Once we look at the side profile here, you can see the thickness is quite a bit different, and it feels totally different on wrist. It's quite a bit more weighty than the SKX. It's quite a heavy watch, really. The crystal here is sapphire, and you can see they are using that AR coating on the underside, and the watch houses the 8L35 movement. So let's pop that crystal off and take a look at the 8L35. No. Sorry, not happening today. I couldn't do that to my pride and joy here, but the 8L35 is actually the Grand Seiko 9S55 in its undecorated and unregulated form. It's a 26 joule movement beating at 28,800 vibrations per hour. It's got a 50-hour power reserve, and for me, has been gaining fairly consistently 6 seconds per 24 hours. I don't have a time grapher, so that's just on the wrist through the day and in the watch box at night against a G-Shock, but pretty happy with that. So let's get this on wrist here. And here it is, and even though it's a pretty big chunk of steel on wrist, I just love how this wears. The way the case is designed conforms to my wrist just perfectly, I find. It's a little top heavy, but once you get the bracelet size just right, I think it wears great. Another thing with the clasp that I didn't mention is it kind of sticks out there quite a bit. So over time, I can see it getting marked up pretty easily, but man, I'm just loving this overall look and feel. We didn't end up talking about the other strap that it comes with. It does come with a rubber or a silicone strap, I guess it is. So let's swap it out for that. So here it is on the silicone, and this is the first time wearing it on this strap, but it actually looks pretty good. The material of the strap's really nice, and it feels good on wrist. I'm not usually a fan of this style of a dive strap, but I could totally see wearing this on a beach vacation somewhere. The guy that I actually bought the watch off of had it on a strap code. I believe this is the Super Oyster, so might as well give you guys a quick look on this one too. All right, so this looks pretty awesome on the watch too. I think I'm going to keep it on this one for a while. I might try out an ISO frame or maybe a Crafter Blue at some point too for it, but what do you guys think? For me, this is the ultimate Seiko diver. I do not see this leaving the collection anytime soon. I think it's just a fantastic watch. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it in the comments below. Thanks so much for stopping by, and we'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.